Hey guys, John Thomas here with Streams Ministries. I am with my friend Graham Cooke. We've been doing the Love and Prophecy Conference this weekend, and I thought this would be a great opportunity just to have a conversation about prophetic communities. So you've been in the prophetic movement. I think you said you've been ministering for 45
years.
45 years. So you've seen a few different prophetic communities, and probably some that worked well and some that didn't work as well.
Yeah, and some that I wished hadn't even been invented.
I can only imagine. What would you like if you were going to be talking to somebody that is in a prophetic community or leading a prophetic community? Like, what are some wisdom points that you'd give them to stay healthy?
Spend more time building a relationship with God than you do prophesying in the first few years. One of my mentors said, you should spend 80% of your ministry time ministering to Jesus and 20% on ministry. And if you get that proportion right, you'll always be able to meet your targets. You'll always be able to go up to the next level relatively easily, and you'll be completely normal. Because if you spend more time in your prophetic ministry than you do in fellowship with Jesus, fellowship with Jesus gives you a language and a style of speaking, because you're talking to your best friend, you're talking to the one who absolutely believes in you, so you're restful, you're peaceful, and so on. And so your language, your prophetic ministry should evolve out of your fellowship with God and the way he talks to you and the way you talk back. And without that fellowship dynamic, you get ministry speak,
right?
Which honestly, a lot of the time, it's not false. It just is not as true or as real as it could be. And then, too much time spent in ministry and not enough time with friends, family, and Jesus makes you kind of cranky and a little bit weird, because you get into a lifestyle that's actually not true of the lifestyle that's in heaven, So I can imagine Father, Son, and Holy Spirit spending a lot of time at a round table with coffee, chatting and laughing, and then, going into the throne room occasionally. And I wonder who stands in the throne room when the three of them are off conspiring about something, But the thing I love about God is how utterly normal he is, and real and true and generous and kind. And I want prophetic people to see that side of the Lord, because then the way they do prophecy evolves dynamically and dramatically into something way more powerful than what you're trying to manufacture in ministry. You know what that's like?
Yeah. I've always had this thought, when it says that we're made in God's image,
right?
We too often think that for us to become God's image, we have to be something other than human.
Right.
To be spiritual. And
right.
So we take on all these methods and these methodologies that we actually change from who we are to try to be spiritual, when being spiritual is actually being who we actually are.
Right.
It's coming into that place. And we talk, well, I'm only human. Well, no, actually, you're human. Like, you're the only thing in all creation that's actually made in the image of God.
Right.
Like, be yourself sometime.
Right. Honestly, it's like watching a 3-year-old boy pretending to be a policeman. It's hilarious. Watching people in prophetic ministry speak is flipping hilarious. It's like, seriously, I've never known God talk like that in my whole life. Just the whole language and the whole way in which they try to project majesty, and they sound like John Wayne at the foot of the cross in The Greatest Story Ever Told. Truly, this was the Son of God. And I'm thinking, I've heard that voice before. I was being prayed over by some prophetic ministries, and I had to stop and say, hang on a minute, I think I like what you're saying, but could you just stop spitting in my face?
Wow.
It was just so strange. And the truth is, God is not supernatural. Not at all. It's totally normal for him to raise the dead, heal the sick, and talk to people about their future. He's just being himself, you know, and he does it in such a normal way that sometimes you can think it's not God.
Yeah.
You know, you think it's you, but no, that's him. If you think it sounds like someone you know, that's probably going to be the Lord. You know, because that was Samuel's experience when he heard the Lord say, Samuel, Samuel. And he thought it was Eli.
Yeah.
And 3 times he got up, and the 3rd time Eli twigged and said, oh, next time you hear it, just say, speak, Lord, your servant hears. And so he heard the Lord speak normally.
Yes.
And we should always let the Lord speak normally through us, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really good. So spending time ministering to Jesus, 80%, 20%, that's a great way of thinking through that. Spending time with family and friends. Like I have this value, and actually, funny enough, I learned it from my friends in Scotland and the UK.
Right.
I have this value for dinner parties.
Oh, yeah.
And just sitting around with family and
Right.
friends around an amazing meal,
Right.
sharing laughs and sharing stories. I think that's done more for my spirituality
Right.
than most of the church services that I've been in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I grew up, when I got saved, I came into a church that, you know, we only taught 10 times a year on a Sunday. And then another Sunday we do worship and prophecy. Another one we do worship and healing. Another one we did a kids service because we get the kids to minister. That was always everyone's favorite service. You get a 6-year-old prophesying to you. It's, oh my Lord Jesus, I think I just got saved. But then the rest of the time, you know, we'd be doing things in the community, and we would have these great meals, and you just need a really good, you know, rectangular table that maybe seats 12, 16 people. And you have like 5 courses, and every course you move 2 places to the left. So you've always got somebody different in front of you. And it's one of the best ways to have fellowship, you know? So there's always someone different to talk to. And then we just had parties all the time, just hung out together and practiced our friendships. And then we had enough time always to engage in the pre-Christian community. You know, so we practiced, actually, our church practiced an urban monastic lifestyle, which was, you don't want to live in A, work in B, and worship in C. You want at least 2 of those in the same space. So we broke up cities into square miles, and we moved into those square miles, and we studied everything in that square mile. We studied the music, we studied the restaurants, the pubs, all of that. We got to know what the social problems were. And we would plant like maybe 40 families and 20 or 30 singles into that square mile. And you had to buy a house in that square mile. Not even the street out over.
Yeah.
You had to be in that square mile. You just had to find the best house possible. And then we just took over that square mile with the goodness of God. That's all we did. We got to know our neighbors. We promoted it. We had a magazine for that square mile that we paid for, and they couldn't advertise in it. We advertised in it for them. So we just got to know every single person. We got to know like the schools where a lot of parents were parents were working. So we got ourselves bonded with social services. So we were identified as, bona fide people. And we would just start a club for kids, latchkey kids, who would be at home 2 hours before their parents. And they could come to us, and we fed them, and we helped them with their homework. And when their parents came to pick them up, we would feed them too.
Wow.
So they would come home from work, they'd have a great meal, their kids had had a great time, and then they could just go off and have the rest of the evening to themselves. And we got so many people saved out of just feeding parents like 5 evenings a week. They never had to cook. And, we paid for the groceries. They couldn't pay us to look after their kids. We did it for free. And so we were I lived in a district in Southampton called Shirley. And our nickname in the pre-Christian community was Shirley Temple. We were Shirley Christian Fellowship, but they called us Shirley Temple. And everyone loved us because we just practiced the love and the goodness of God. That's all we ever did. Everyone loved us. Nobody had a bad word to say for us. And when we did things, Power in the Park and stuff like that, everyone was there. The whole square mile would come out when we were doing events. And we took over the biggest pub. We took it on a Tuesday night, which is a slow night. We have great musicians. We just did great music. And we started to have the kind of crowds that they couldn't get on a Saturday. So then they moved us to Saturday. We would do secular music, but every fourth song was a worship song. And we'd just say, okay, so you like those? You're really going to love this. This is a worship song. This is what we sing in our church. And we would sing it. And everyone would get to know those songs. And then people would start asking for those songs. You just create an environment.
Yeah.
But the whole thing we did was prophetic.
Yeah.
Because we were just looking at people saying, whether you're Christian or pre-Christian is of absolutely no interest, really. The point is they're a human being.
Yeah.
And they just need encouragement. So that's what we gave in abundance. We encouraged everybody.
That's amazing.
Everybody. That was our plan. Simple.
And I love the fact that prophetic community wasn't a secret place in somebody's basement where everybody got together and came up with plans to tell the world how bad it was.
Right.
But you actually were engaged in the community.
Yeah.
And doing life with Jesus,
right.
what the church is supposed to be,
right.
being in a community, providing a place of love, right. serving people, and spreading right. the love of God in various places.
Then when we had those European-style meals, we would always have a couple of pre-Christian couples. Mm. And we'd just be normal, telling funny jokes or whatever. And when you moved and you got in front of them, we were just asking them what they did. Mm. And everyone was just saying something to encourage them. So they had a great time. And some of those couples didn't hardly have any friends. Mm. So they just kept saying to us, oh, we love that. So we made sure that 2 other couples invited them to another one so they'd meet more people. And you only need to do that 3 or 4 times. And so they have 4 meals with 4 different groups, and they make connections with nearly 30 people.
Wow.
And now they want to be in.
Right. Yeah, which is, it seems like I remember reading something as sociologists was talking about that 30 people is that place of community. You feel like you're part of a community once you know 30 people.
Right. Yeah.
If you know 3 or 4, it's just a group. It's not a community. Right. Really. So there's an ownership that happens.
Yeah, and then they would come to our music evenings, or we ran dance schools and we did plays and stuff like that. So they would come into that kind of environment and see these are creative, they're funny, but they're really great to be with. Yeah. And that's what people want. They want to belong to something. Yeah. And so they belong to us before they belong to Jesus. And I think that's the way to do it. Sometimes we go and we do a hit because we want to introduce them to Jesus, but we've not really properly introduced them to us.
Yeah.
And I think we introduce them to this family, then we introduce them to Dad.
Yeah.
So... And then they love it because when we introduce them to Jesus, suddenly they look back and think, that's what that was, Yeah. So we're not interested in hits. We're interested in relationships that become sanctified.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. I love that picture for what a prophetic community is. Because I talk about prophetic communities. I help prophetic communities, but I always have a problem with the idea of prophetic church, because what that usually means is we're a bunch of prophetic people that are our own little clique. Right. But it's not actually the fullness of who God is. Yeah. Yeah, because you were talking earlier about we have, some places we have evangelists, pastors, teachers. We don't have prophets and apostles, or we have prophets, but we don't want to have anything to do with teachers, or we separate out, which are all expressions of Jesus. Exactly. And it's I like you on Mondays, but I don't like you on Tuesdays or Wednesdays or Thursdays. Right. It's weird how we do that. Right. But we've got to find the full expression.
Yeah, it's having those, the scripture says that these are all gifts, to do the work of the ministry. So actually, we've never called ourselves a ministry, really. We're just in business with Jesus to do whatever.
Yeah.
So that's it. Jesus said, I must be about my Father's business. I'm thinking, oh, that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
What do you do? Well, we're in business. What do you do? We encourage people. How do you do that? Well, we do a bunch of stuff, We love creativity, we love music, we love all that. But we like community, we like people, and we love the whole idea of being friends with a whole different range of people.
Yeah.
So that's, if you ask us what we do best, friendship is what we do best. And then we don't dress it up or anything, but we let people find out for themselves. So I don't want to create a language around those things that, is at odds with, who God is with me in my private life. He never comes in ministry mode with me.
Yeah.
He just doesn't. We just start, and he might ask a question, and suddenly, or he might sometimes just say, Graham, is there anything you want to ask me? When he knows very well I want to ask something, he's just like saying, okay, you start.
Yeah.
And I think everything should be as simple as possible and as kind and as generous as we can make it.
Yeah.
And then we'll always do well.
Yeah.
So our language then just becomes one of, friendship, peace, goodness, kindness, and interest, what's going on, how you doing, that kind of thing, And occasionally, we have questions. I grew up with, like, the church I was part of, we had 20 life processing questions. Like, for any kind of situation you get stuck in, we created a question that we could ask God. And then we discovered that God had 20 questions that he wanted to ask us that would help us, empower us in our dreams and all of that stuff. So we had these 40 questions, and life was pretty simple because you had a question. So if you have a question, you can have a conversation.
Yeah.
So I have them in my bag.
Do you?
I carry them everywhere. All of our team has those questions. So we all know in all of our teams, these are the questions. Probably one of these questions is going to come up. And so when you carry those questions and you get in a situation, you just look around and think, that's the question I need to be asking right now. So I brought some actually so I could give you them.
Oh, that's great.
No, that would be cool. I'd love you to have them.
Yeah.
Because because they open a dialogue. And we had we used to start a dialogue because we wanted to explore something. Then when we were ready to make a decision, then we would have a discussion about what we'd explored. So dialogue was, you could say anything. Doesn't matter if it's dumb or not. Just say anything, and then we'll just tease out what we need to see and learn. Then we're ready, we're thinking, we're getting into a ballpark area. Then we'd have a discussion, and then we'd make a decision.
Wow.
So it's brilliant. All our fellowship was just about doing this, sitting down, having a chat, and we operated in a relationship with God, which meant we were never needed to be in a hurry.
Wow.
Because he does everything out of rest. And I learned rest. I was discipled in rest when I was like 23, 24 years old.
Wow.
How to walk in rest, how to walk in peace. And like I said earlier, I think the last time I worried was around 23 years ago. Because peace, I was taught peace in such a way that it was thrilling. Why would you want to have anything else other than that?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. So guys that we had, all of our leadership team, they all had a leadership gift. And it showed, and they were so people focused. We weren't at all focused on what we should do as a ministry necessarily. We were focused on what we could be for each other. And let's just see what grew out of that. So it was a gorgeous dynamic.
Yeah.
But
that concept of specializing in relationships.
Right.
Like that's my specialty. I specialize in relationships. I have a relationship with one, and I have a relationship with a few.
Right.
like the ones around me,
Right.
and just letting that be. I mean, that I think, and just thinking through, because I've never put it into that language like that, and just thinking through the different prophetic communities that I've seen that do well.
Right.
Every single one of them are marked by that.
Right.
And I hadn't put it together before. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. And once you get there, it elevates you so quickly, you know? So, and everyone can go up to the same level really quickly, because it's that creates the best atmosphere and the best learning environment. An atmosphere is where you all feel at ease with each other. You all feel joyful being around each other. And there is no place of fear.
Yeah.
So there's no fear of man, no fear of being wrong, none of that stuff. So you can voice what you're thinking, even if it's not good enough. And everyone's going to go, oh, that's interesting. Where can we take that? You know, not, oh, I don't like that, but that's fascinating. Where can we take that? You know?
Yeah.
So when you have a culture of possibilities, everything's possible. You know? And everyone feels relaxed about talking our way into something, you know? So you don't really have to lead a conversation like that. You just have to guide it,
Right.
you know? But it's very restful.
Sounds kind of like Jesus.
You know? Totally.
It does.
Totally. That Jesus.
Oh man.
So peaceful.
Yeah.
We always, as a staff, we're always talking, oh, that Jesus. Like, it's like that Jesus, so beautiful. That Jesus, so mischievous. That Jesus, that is genius.
Yeah.
You know? And we all talk about the genius Holy Spirit, because Holy Spirit totally fascinates me.
I know. I know. Just, I mean, the concepts that couldn't have come from the creativity
Right.
of seeing whatever it may be. I mean, I'm thinking of a church that I'm related to right now. I love these people, and just watching how the process that the Holy Spirit is taking them through in the last 4 or 5 years that I've been working with them and just been a part of their family, and seeing, like, I could have never guessed. But watching the pieces, okay, now this is what was said here, and 3 years later, this is what's happening. But this was said here, and 5 years later, it's happening here. And it could have never drawn that map, and yet it all worked together.
Yeah.
I love the question of, like, what is next? Like, I have no idea what's going to happen. I just know he's going to be here, but I have no idea what this is going to look like, and I can't wait.
Right. And that's a true prophetic community, because they follow through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's one thing to get a breakthrough, but there's no real breakthrough without follow through.
Yeah.
You can get a breakthrough in a meeting that is never followed through into a lifestyle. Yeah. And then we have this culture of everything's around meetings. When Jesus, you know, never said, he didn't say, I have come that you might have meetings and have them more abundantly. You know, he came and he said, he talked about friendship. In fact, he only used the word church 3 times. He used kingdom 108.
Yeah.
Focus. You know, church comes out of kingdom. Kingdom doesn't come out of church.
Yes.
So we produce kingdom communities where the expression of church was radically different from group to group, and even a part of this town to a part of that part of town. They were completely different groups.
Yeah.
There was no cookie cutter approach, because we were building kingdom lifestyle based on the lifestyle and the problems of the people we were amongst. Yeah. And that was different. It's different in a wealthy area than in a poor area, than in a middle class area, than in an industrial area, and so on. It's all so different. The lifestyles are so different. So you have to have a lifestyle that's commensurate for the people that you're with, that they feel they can join you in, because it's normal. Yeah. And then you gradually upgrade who they are and how they think, you know? And it's interesting, we could track the gentrification of the city by how we changed the thinking of the people group in that quarter. How we made them see themselves. We encouraged that. We taught them how to think possibilities. We got them to stop speaking negatively. And it's interesting how many people then began to get better jobs, or they began to start their own small businesses. And you could see the whole community coming alive and being creative. And then companies wanted to move into that area. And then we had a company that was doing up houses. So we bought a few houses so we could like talk to maybe a younger couple, 4 kids and husband working, and they're living in a house that was falling apart. And we'd move them into this house, then we would do their house up and move them back. No cost.
Wow.
No cost. We had carpenters, we had plumbers, electricians. We could all paint. I mean, you know. So, and then we had car mechanics who every winter they got every single parent's car fixed up for the winter. No cost. You know, everyone adored us because we did turn their world upside down.
Literally.
And in the midst of that, people could get healed. They could get a prophetic word. They met Jesus. You know, they learned to enjoy their life. And I think that's that is all to me, all of that is preaching the gospel.
Yeah.
But we never took them to a service where they could hear about Jesus. In fact, we wouldn't take them to church at all for months. We just got them used to the community. And when they came to a service, they were already saved. And when they came to a service and they saw everything, it just heightened the whole experience, you know. Typical way is take them to a meeting, get them saved, and then we have no other plan really. Getting the Bible study, all of that stuff. I'm not saying those things are wrong, not at all. But people are not complete unless they know how to make friends and be loved and love.
Yeah.
So we introduced them. We were the book that they read. Because pre-Christians don't read a Bible, they read us.
Yeah.
So we were the book.
And the calls to relationship.
Right.
Like we've been saying it for how many decades? You know, it's about relationship. It's not about religion, and yet we still are processing religion.
Yeah.
But if it's about relationship, I mean, that is what we have with the Lord.
Right.
But you can't say that you have something with the Lord that doesn't equate to how you interact with people.
Exactly.
Because you don't actually have it if it's not manifesting.
Right. It's unreality. You know? One of my heroes is William Wilberforce. Now, he's mostly known for anti-slavery. But that was his hobby. It wasn't his life. What he's known for in England is he started a work called Let's Make Goodness Fashionable. He got the royal family, all the lords and ladies, houses of parliament, business people, churches, and so on. And they would invade particular communities and put money in and resources in, and they would grow that people. By goodness, they would take those people and get them jobs and do all of that stuff.
Wow.
And they had over 1 million people get saved, and nobody preached the gospel. Now, I've done that. I've had 2 agencies that I ran. I got the government to give me grants for a particular community, and I got 400 people into work.
Wow.
Because I started a company where I matched an unemployed person with a particular company. And then we gave them training to be able to get a job there. And then we taught the colleges into giving them a free place on a course. And we had over 400 people get into work.
Wow.
I found one area where all the common buildings, the public buildings, were all in a state of dilapidation. And I got the government to give me a grant, and I got unemployed people and retired business professionals like painters, decorators, plasterers. And we refurbished every one of those buildings. And then we got these kids on like a day release at a college. And at the end of the project, they all got jobs with building companies. And we did all these buildings up.
Yeah.
It was fantastic fun. It was hard work, It was gorgeous fun. And the number of people saved on those projects because we gave them hope. We gave them a future. We gave them a hope. And when they said, why are you doing this? And we just said, we're Christians. This is what he does. That Jesus.
I love it.
But the thing is, you have to love people. And you have to love those things. And you don't see it as a ministry. You just see it as, this is, one, it's fun. Two, it's just like, it's blowing people's minds about what the kingdom really is. And it's meeting people right at a point of critical need in a friendly fashion.
Yeah.
See, it's unbeatable.
Yeah, can't beat that.
But the laziness of evangelism is what has really pulled us down in the context of all we ever think about is having a meeting, getting a speaker in, trying to get as many people through that door as possible. And all we really want is another notch on our Bible. But if you look at the number of people who get saved and the number of people who get added to a church or who are still around months later,
yeah,
it's not, you've just done a hit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And well, I mean, that's probably a whole nother conversation, but what is being saved anyways?
Right.
Because I have this allergy to the idea that it's just saying a few words.
Right.
Right. But
yeah.
Practical expression of the nature of Jesus.
Right.
But that would be a good definition of a prophetic community.
In the context of friendship and relationship.
Yeah.
Most people in our societies are alone or lonely.
Yeah.
Loneliness, I think, is one of the biggest epidemics in modern day society. And particularly now when you've got this technological world where everyone spends more time texting each other than talking to each other. Mm-hmm. I've seen people across the room texting each other. And it's like, dude, you're 6 feet away.
Yeah.
You know? But that whole technological thing actually, it becomes antisocial because people never get together personally. You know, they're always on their machines.
Yeah.
And
it gives a false sense of community without the reality.
Right.
And then you don't understand why you feel empty.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's unfulfilling. And ultimately, you're still in your little cave.
Yeah.
In fact, they have this feature in Japan right now where there are so many young people who've never been out of their house for 2 years.
Wow.
Because their job is remote. You know, they can service their company by just doing data entry and stuff. Then they're gaming and they're texting, they're on Facebook, but they never actually come out of their house hardly because they don't know how to interact with people. They don't know how to navigate their way even around their own city. They're lost in this little world.
A little bubble.
And they don't have to connect with anybody, and then they lose the ability to do so. They lose the will to do it. And it's a huge problem over there. And I think it might be spreading into some places. I often wonder what would happen if somebody blew up the internet. It's a little like, remember the Truman Show? The Truman Show?
Yeah.
Where everyone's following this guy's life like it's their own.
Right.
Like reality TV is the worst thing ever because it's unreal, because they make it all up just to capture an audience so they can sell them something through the advertising, whatever. And here's this show of this one guy who doesn't even know that he is a program until right at the very end. And then he decides to opt out. Then suddenly there's no more show. And it's like people are going, well, what do we do now? And then like a shot of people wandering out into the street and looking around and thinking, what is this place?
Yeah. Oh, I thought the world was like that. But
right.
It's like this?
Exactly. Sometimes I think I've met a few Truman churches.
I was just going to say the same thing. I was just going to say the same thing. Like, what would happen if we actually got out of our little boxes,
right,
and got into the world? Like,
right,
we have this picture of what the world is like that's so insular.
Yeah.
That we're disconnected from reality, and we wonder why we're not impacting cultures.
Right. Yeah.
But It's touching people.
Right.
It's relationship. It's being there. It's actually it's not just the little pieces of Jesus that we're kind of familiar with or that we were taught, but actually getting to know who he really is and finding out ways that all of our life can reflect all of his life.
Exactly. And I think the modern church is largely a refuge from change. And some people have this mindset that if we get too much in the world, we'll get tainted. It's like, seriously, you believe more in the power of the enemy to affect you than you do in the power of God to influence and inspire you.
Yes.
And you think that the kingdom is not bigger than the world? Seriously? You carry the kingdom around. You can't get infected if what's in you is more powerful than the germ that's out there. I mean, we've all been inoculated by the kingdom. So, you can't get infected. But so why do you have a mindset that says we need to avoid this? When the early church, everyone celebrated when they came. I can imagine that whole thing of the people who turned the world upside down have come here also. It wasn't a negative, oh gosh, the people who turned the world upside down, now they're here. I think it was more like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my gosh, banging on people's doors. They're here. They're here. Who? The people who turn the world upside down. They're here. We can get healed. We can have this. We can have that. That's what I think it was like.
Come on.
People get the world getting excited. Oh my God, they're here. Everything's going to be okay now. What if it could be like that?
I think it should be.
Sheesh.
I think it should be.
That would be gorgeous.
Yes,
we would make every community, every city gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me that we have, all the big cities that have huge churches of 30, 35,000 people. They are some of the worst cities in the country for divorce, for crime, for drugs, for single parent, girls, for education, for jobs, for just the dereliction in those communities, the graffiti, all of that stuff. They are some of the worst cities in the country.
Wow.
And you think, but they've got these big communities. And it's not a criticism against that, but it's like, why have a church of 35,000 people when you could have maybe 12 churches of 3,000 people, each of who were doing something in a square mile?
Yeah.
Why just have this big center, that most of the people round and about couldn't go to because they don't even have the clothes to wear to go inside that building? I've seen that so many times. I had one church I was working with. They were right on the edge of a really poor community. And they were really good at investing money into that community and seeing things happen. And they realized that none of the people from that community were going to their church. So they started churches there. And they asked the question to people, why don't people come to our church? And they said, well, because you all wear suits and ties. And we just have jeans and T-shirts. You think, seriously, that's it?
Yeah.
And so the leader said, so maybe we should start a clothing store and give them shirts and so on. And I said, maybe you guys should start wearing jeans. Honestly, seriously.
Wow.
No one wants to look like you.
Wow.
They really should want to be with you first.
Yeah.
But if the reason they're not being with you is because they can't look like you, something's broken down.
Yeah.
They said, you guys should just start wearing jeans and T-shirts or whatever and hanging out with them. And then maybe you could start a clothing store that gives them better jeans and T-shirts.
Yeah.
And think about doing that for free.
Yeah.
So we started this store there that for poor families, you can go and get things for school for the kids and clothes. And we gave all the parents a fake credit card. So they could come shopping with their kids, and then they could pay for it with a fake credit card, and their kids never knew they were poor. never knew they were poor. And then we were doing up their houses. Kids never grew up knowing they were poor. So they didn't grow up disadvantaged.
That's amazing.
That is totally kingdom.
That's Jesus.
Right there.
Yeah.
And then they could eat at restaurants, fake credit card. The kids could have this whole thing of going out. And then we just talked the cinema into like, you know, just once a month or something, can we just do a free show? Take all the kids. And they never knew they were poor, you know.
Yeah.
And I loved what became of that church is that they changed, you know. And people still never crossed the road because they had churches right there in their community built on relationships. But I think the people in that church were probably the ones who got saved the most, maybe. You know?
Yeah. It's amazing how acting like Jesus
Oh my gosh.
will actually cause you to be like Jesus.
Right.
You
Right,
fall
right.
in love with him.
Right.
It's,
That's exactly it.
yeah, I love it. Graham, thank you. I mean, thank you for this conversation, obviously, but thank you for the history that you've developed, that you can release something to the body of Christ and just honor the price that you paid for it. That your potential became an inheritance for somebody else.
Honestly, I don't feel like I've paid a price yet, because what I'm seeing and learning about Jesus is like I still owe him big time. Yeah, I am not paying a price. I'm living in my reward.
Wow.
That's how I see it. You know, I mean, Jesus paid the price. The rest of us are just, you know, we have a club membership into this brilliant relationship.
We get a fake credit card so we know.
I have my own fake credit card with Jesus. Totally.
Yes.
Totally, that's it.
So like him.
Right. Everything's free.
So good.